Don't be surprised when I tell you that one of the most powerful tools for shifting the energy in your home is something already sitting in your kitchen. It's not expensive, it's not rare, and you probably use it every day: salt. Salt has a fascinating origin. It comes from the earth, formed through the natural interaction of water, sun, and time. It's one of the oldest substances known to humankind, and for thousands of years, it's been used not just as a seasoning, but as a powerful tool for cleansing, protecting, and balancing energy. In Feng Shui, salt is seen as a grounding earth element that can stabilize chaotic energy, absorb negativity, and create a clearer, more harmonious space. But this isn't unique to Feng Shui. Many cultures around the world, Eastern and Western alike, have long recognized salt's energetic qualities. From rituals to home protection to spiritual cleansing, salt has been quietly doing its work across generations. Today, I'm going to show you how to use salt effectively in your home, not through complicated rituals, but with simple, thoughtful placement. Just a few minutes of your time can bring long-lasting results, attracting wealth, protecting your family's energy, and clearing out what no longer serves you. These are small, easy steps. No special tools. No need to rearrange your whole house. And yet, the effects can be powerful and surprisingly fast. If this sparks your curiosity, or gives you a new way of thinking about your space, I'd love for you to like this video, or subscribe to the channel. I share practical, real-life tips on energy care and mindful living. And sometimes, the simplest things really do make the biggest difference. You'd be surprised how often people misunderstand the role of salt in Feng Shui. Many treat it like a cure-all. Put a bowl here, toss a bit in the corner, maybe hide some behind a door, and hope it'll clear out bad energy. But salt doesn't work that way. Its effect in Feng Shui isn't about how much you use, or where you place it. It's about how well it fits with the energy of your space, and whether you're using it with the right intention. In Feng Shui, salt represents the earth element. But it's not just plain earth. It's earth shaped by both water and fire. Think about where salt comes from. Seawater that's been evaporated by the sun. That process brings together two powerful forces, water and fire, to create something solid and grounding. So when you use salt in your home, you're working with a material that carries the energy of those elements combined. Here's where things often go wrong. A common belief is, the more salt, the better. It sounds like it makes sense. More salt, more cleansing, right? But that's not how Feng Shui works. Too much salt means too much earth energy, and that can throw things off balance. Instead of clearing the space, you might make it feel heavy or stuck. Think of it like lighting too many candles in a small room. It's not warm and cozy anymore. It's too much. The energy stops moving naturally, because the salt is absorbing everything, including the good stuff. Even the container you use matters. It's not just about how it looks. In Feng Shui, certain materials can either support or clash with salt's earth energy. For example, metal weakens earth energy, and plastics, especially those that represent wood, can actually fight earth in the 5-element cycle. So putting salt in a metal tin or a plastic cup might seem harmless, but it can throw off the balance. A simple ceramic or glass bowl works much better. Think of it like making a good soup. You wouldn't serve it in a rusty can. And let's talk about the salt itself. Most of what's sold in supermarkets is refined salt. Bright white. All the crystals the same. Often processed and mixed with additives. It may be clean, but it's lost the natural energy it once had. It's like comparing distilled water to spring water. Technically fine, but lacking life. If you want to invite healthy energy into your home, use unrefined salt, like coarse sea salt or Himalayan pink salt. Something that still feels connected to nature. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine had this low-level tension at home. Nothing major, just a sense of irritability in the air. She'd read about using salt to clear energy, and placed large bowls of white table salt in plastic containers in every corner of her living room. After a week, the place didn't feel better. In fact, it felt heavier. She switched to smaller ceramic bowls with natural sea salt and only placed them where it made sense. The change was noticeable. The space felt calmer, lighter, more at ease. That's what proper salt use in Feng Shui is about. It's not just about where you put it or what you hope it'll do. It's about understanding why it works and treating salt like a natural, living substance. When you use it with care and respect, you create harmony, not just in your space, but in how you feel inside it. So if you're thinking of using salt in your Feng Shui practice, go for it. Just don't treat it like a magic fix, or assume more is better. Think of it as earth energy, strong, steady, and most powerful when used mindfully. 4. Best places to put a salt jar for wealth and protection. 1. Near the front door. Your front door isn't just how you come and go. It's the gateway for energy to enter your home. In Feng Shui, it's called the mouth of Qi, and everything, positive or negative, passes through it. If you've ever come home from a hospital or a funeral feeling drained, that's not just in your head. You've picked up energy from outside and brought it back with you. You may not see it, but your body and home can feel it. This is where salt comes in. Not the kind you shake on your fries. This is natural, mineral-rich salt, placed just inside the door. Quietly and consistently, it absorbs the heavy or scattered energy you carry in from the outside world. Over time, you'll likely notice your home feels lighter, more settled, like you've got an invisible buffer that takes the edge off whatever you've been through out there. But here's the trick. Where and how you place it matters. The salt should be near the front door, but out of sight, tucked behind a shoe rack, under a small table, or inside a decorative container. Why hide it? Because putting it out in the open is like waving your wallet around in public. It draws attention, which weakens the quiet, protective effect. In Feng Shui, especially systems like Shen Kong Da Gua, hidden energy is more powerful and stable than exposed energy. When energy tools like salt are left out in plain view, they don't just lose effectiveness. They can actually leak the very energy they're meant to hold. You might be wondering, does something this small really make a difference? The answer, yes. Even seasoned Feng Shui consultants, who work in corporate settings, will place a tiny jar of sea salt near their office entrance. It resets the energy every time someone walks in, especially after stressful meetings or difficult conversations. It's simple, quiet, and effective. If you have kids coming home from school, work in healthcare, or spend a lot of time on public transport, this little salt jar can be one of your home's strongest protectors. No incense, no chanting, just a low-key tool doing a steady job. One important note: the kind of salt you use matters. Skip the refined table salt. Use coarse sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, something unprocessed and full of natural minerals. Put it in a glass or ceramic container, not plastic or metal, and replace it every couple of weeks, just like you'd change an air filter. When it gets overloaded, it stops working as it should. Done right, this small habit turns your entryway into an energy filter. It lets the good in, holds the noise out, and keeps your space feeling calm and balanced. 2. Inside the shoe cabinet. Most of us don't give much thought to the shoe cabinet. It's just where the shoes go, right? But in Feng Shui, that cabinet can quietly become one of the biggest sources of stuck, negative energy in the home. Think about it. Shoes go everywhere. Public restrooms, hospital corridors, city streets. And who knows what else? They pick up more than dirt. They carry energetic residue from every place they've been. You can't see it, but your home can feel it. Now picture all of that energy being stored in a closed space, right next to your front door, without anything to balance it. That cabinet turns into a holding tank for heavy, low-vibe energy. Over time, it starts to affect the space around it. The air might feel heavier. You might notice more bickering, more irritability, or a sense that something's just off. And it might not be you or your family. It might be your shoes. That's where a simple jar of salt comes in. Hidden quietly in a corner of the shoe cabinet. Natural salt does more than absorb odor and moisture. It acts as an energetic filter, drawing in and neutralizing the invisible gunk. Before it spreads into the rest of your home, you're not just covering up the problem, you're cutting it off at the source. It's a small fix, but the shift can be real. One client told me, her entryway always felt heavy, no matter how clean it looked. After she placed a small ceramic bowl of sea salt in the back of her shoe cabinet, the difference was noticeable. The air felt lighter. Her kids weren't snapping at each other as much. That was the only change she made. Just one bowl of salt. There's just one rule. Don't forget about it. Check the salt every couple of weeks. If it starts to clump or look damp, that's a good sign. It means it's working. Replace it regularly. And skip the plastic or metal containers. They can interfere with the salt's natural grounding energy. Stick with ceramic, glass, or clay. These materials hold energy better and help the salt do its job more effectively. Bonus: even if you're not fully sold on the energy side of Feng Shui, this trick still helps with moisture and odor, especially in damp or rainy seasons. That alone is worth it. This isn't about superstition. It's about being mindful of the spaces we often ignore. If the energy of your home begins from the ground up, it makes sense to start where your shoes land. 3. In the bathroom on a high shelf. Bathrooms don't usually get much attention in Feng Shui, and there's a reason for that. Traditionally, they're seen as places where energy flows out, rather than builds up. In many classic Feng Shui schools, the toilet isn't just a functional feature, it's a symbol of loss. A loss of wealth, well-being, and harmony. Especially when the bathroom is placed in a central location, or right next to shared spaces like the living room. That's where things can start to feel off. Now, this doesn't mean your bathroom is bad luck, or that you need a full remodel. It just means you need to be a little more intentional about how you manage the energy there. And one of the easiest tools to help with that: salt. Here's why it works. Bathrooms are damp by nature. That dampness doesn't just lead to mold and musty smells. It also creates stagnant energy. Salt naturally draws moisture out of the air, which helps keep things physically balanced. But more than that, salt has a grounding energy. It helps counteract the constant water movement. Flushing, draining, running taps. That pulls qi, or life force, down and out. In simple terms, salt helps plug the leak. But like most things in Feng Shui, placement matters. Don't put the salt right on the toilet tank, or low on the floor where it could get wet or splashed. That'll just make a mess, and wear the salt down too fast. Instead, find a dry, higher-up spot. On a shelf, near the sink, or in a corner above waist level. Use coarse sea salt or Himalayan salt, and place it in a glass, ceramic, or clay container. Avoid plastic or metal. Those can clash with the stabilizing energy you're trying to create. One client I worked with had a bathroom just off her living room. She kept it spotless, but the space never felt quite right. The living room energy felt unsettled, and guests would sometimes comment that something felt off. She added a small bowl of salt on a shelf near the sink. Nothing dramatic, just a small, thoughtful adjustment. Within days, the space felt calmer. The smell improved. Even the sound in the room felt softer. Of course, Salt isn't a cure-all. You still want your bathroom to be clean, well ventilated, and dry. Keep the toilet lid closed when it's not in use. But adding a jar of natural salt creates a quiet layer of protection. It keeps your home from leaking more than just water. And in Feng Shui, those subtle shifts can have a surprising impact. Mood, money, clarity, they're all connected. So if your bathroom is near a busy part of the home, or just feels heavy no matter how often you clean it, try this. It's simple, affordable, and surprisingly effective. One small jar of salt can make a big difference in how your space feels. 4. In the kitchen, in a hidden cabinet or near stove or sink. The kitchen is often called the heart of the home, and in Feng Shui, it's also one of the most sensitive and dynamic spaces. Why? Because it's where two powerful elements, fire and water, are constantly interacting. The stove, fire, and the sink, water, are often side by side or directly across from each other. On the surface, that might seem like no big deal. But energetically, it's a tug-of-war. And when fire and water clash, that tension doesn't just stay in the kitchen. It can show up as family arguments, communication breakdowns, even financial stress. This isn't about superstition. It's about understanding how energy moves through your home. When there's constant friction between elements, it affects the people who live there. The kitchen, as a daily hub of activity, becomes a pressure point. This is where salt comes in. A simple jar of natural salt, placed in a quiet corner, inside a pantry, behind the spice rack, or in a cabinet, can help smooth that energetic tension. Salt doesn't cancel out fire or water. It helps them balance. It acts like a quiet mediator in the room, keeping things steady, so the energy doesn't tip too far in either direction. There's also a deeper layer to this. In many Asian traditions, the kitchen isn't just functional. It's sacred. It's where food is prepared, where energy is transformed into nourishment. In some beliefs, the kitchen is home to a house spirit or kitchen god, a symbolic presence that watches over the family's well-being. Seen this way, taking care of your kitchen's energy isn't just about comfort. It's a form of respect. And in that context, a jar of salt becomes more than a tool. It becomes a small offering, a way to honor the space, where your family's health and abundance begin. I had a friend with a gorgeous kitchen, high-end appliances, beautiful design, but things always felt off when she cooked. She kept burning meals, breaking dishes, and getting into arguments with her partner, while they were both in the space. When I asked her about the layout, the problem was clear. The stove and sink were directly opposite each other. A classic fire-water conflict. She placed a small bowl of Himalayan salt in a dry spot near the spices, and within weeks, things settled. Cooking felt easier, calmer. No layout changes, just an energy shift. As always, the type of salt matters. Use coarse sea salt or Himalayan salt, something unprocessed, still rich in minerals. And be mindful of placement. Keep it dry, out of direct view, and away from water or heat. Replace it every few weeks, or when it starts clumping from moisture. Your kitchen doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need balance. And sometimes, that balance starts with something simple. A quiet jar of salt, doing steady, unseen work in the background. 3 worst places to put salt that can block your luck. 1. In a child's bedroom. In Feng Shui, a child's bedroom is one of the most sensitive and important spaces in the home. It's not just where they sleep. It's where their energy develops, where their imagination takes shape, and where they quietly process everything they've taken in during the day. That's why, even with the best intentions, placing a jar of salt in a child's room is usually not a good idea. Salt is powerful, no doubt, but it doesn't filter what it absorbs. It just pulls everything in. That's what makes it great for entryways, bathrooms, or kitchens. where you're dealing with a mix of energy that needs to be neutralized. But in a child's room, the energy is different. It's fresh, vital, and still forming. It's the kind of energy you want to protect and support, not absorb. When you place salt in that environment, it can unintentionally act like a quiet energy vacuum. The change might not be obvious right away, but over time, you may notice your child's sleep isn't as deep, their energy dips, or their creativity seems a bit dulled. It's subtle, but children are especially sensitive to their surroundings. They pick up on what we can't always see or feel. In many Eastern traditions, a child's space is seen as a field for positive karma to grow, a place to cultivate compassion, curiosity, and clarity. Everything in that room should support their sense of safety, openness, and possibility. Constantly pulling energy out of the space with something like salt just doesn't align with that purpose. If you're looking to create a calm, balanced atmosphere in your child's room, use items that enhance the energy, not dampen it. A soft, warm bedside lamp helps set a relaxing tone. Gentle houseplants like pothose or snake plant improve the air and bring in nourishing wood energy. Crystals like rose quartz or amethyst can offer a calming presence without disrupting the natural energy flow. Salt has a valuable role in Feng Shui, but the bedroom where your child sleeps, plays, and grows isn't the place for it. That room needs to feel alive. It needs to breathe and glow and evolve alongside them. Let it be a space that lifts them up, not one that slowly drains their light. 2. On the living room coffee table. The living room table, often called the guest table, is more than just a piece of furniture. It's where people gather, talk, share meals, and connect. In Feng Shui, it's considered a social center of the home, a place that should feel open, warm, and balanced. It's where energy is meant to circulate freely, helping to strengthen relationships and build harmony. That's exactly why placing a jar or bowl of salt right in the middle of it can quietly throw things off. Salt, by nature, absorbs energy. It draws things in, stabilizes, and holds. That's useful in areas like bathrooms or shoe cabinets, where you want to neutralize heavy or stagnant energy. But in a space meant for conversation, laughter, and emotional exchange, salt can actually work against you. Set it in the center of that flow, and you might find the energy feels flat. Guests may not know why, but they'll sense it. Conversations might feel a little off, or the room might carry a subtle heaviness that lingers. There's also a social layer to think about. From a guest's perspective, seeing a bowl of salt sitting quietly on the table, especially if it's not part of a meal or decor, can send the wrong signal. Even if you don't say a word, the message can feel like something's being blocked here. In many traditions, salt is used in rituals to ward off negative energy. That kind of symbolism can create subconscious discomfort, even if the intention is positive. But this doesn't mean salt has no place in the living room. If you want the grounding and protective qualities of salt, without disrupting the atmosphere, placement is key. Tuck it into a shelf, place it high and out of direct view, or choose a decorative object made from mineral salt, like a sealed salt crystal piece that blends with your style. These work more like passive protectors, offering support, without interfering with the social flow of the room. Because that's what good Feng Shui is really about. Creating spaces where people feel welcome, seen, and connected. When energy flows well, conversations do too. And when you're careful about the subtle messages your space sends, your guests will feel it, even if they don't know exactly why. 3. Under the bed or near the head of the bed. Placing salt under the bed might seem harmless, maybe even like a good idea. You might think, why not clear out some energy while I sleep? But in Feng Shui, especially from the perspective of the Tian Ting Feng school, that's actually one of the worst places you can put it. Your bed isn't just where your body rests. It's your connection to heavenly energy, the subtle, nourishing force that supports your spirit during sleep. Sleep is when your body heals, your energy resets, and your mind integrates everything from the day. It's a sacred window for restoration. The last thing you want is something interfering with that. Salt under the bed acts like an invisible vacuum. Yes, it absorbs, but it doesn't filter. That means it's not just clearing stress or negativity from the room. It can also pull from your own energy field while you sleep. Over time, people report waking up groggy, dealing with headaches or brain fog, or feeling emotionally off, despite getting enough sleep. Some even experience sleep paralysis or vivid nightmares, all because that jar of salt is working against the restorative flow your body needs at night. There's also a symbolic mismatch here. Salt is meant to hold and absorb energy, to stabilize and quiet a space. Sleep, on the other hand, is an active process of regeneration. When those two clash, one pulling energy in, the other trying to build it up, it creates tension in a place that should feel safe and free. If your goal is to protect your sleep or make your bedroom more peaceful, there are better tools. A small piece of rose quartz on the nightstand or tucked under your pillow can promote emotional balance and deeper rest. Lavender essential oil, diffused gently before bed, helps calm the nervous system without disrupting the energy of the room. These choices support your energy rather than draw from it. Bottom line, keep the space under your bed clear, physically and energetically. Let it breathe. That open space allows heavenly energy to circulate and rise through you as you sleep. And that's where true restoration begins. How often should you replace salt, and how to do it right? In Feng Shui, salt works a lot like an energetic air filter. It quietly absorbs heavy, chaotic, or unbalanced energy from your space, just doing its job in the background. But like any filter, it has a limit. Once it's full, it stops helping, and can even start doing more harm than good. This is the part many people miss. They place jars of salt with good intentions, then forget about them. Months, or even years, go by without a second thought, and what started as a cleansing tool becomes a saturated sponge, no longer filtering anything. In some cases, it may even begin to leak the energy it once held. So how do you know when it's time to replace the salt? Start with the physical signs. If the salt has clumped, feels damp to the touch, or has developed a sharp, metallic odor, it's absorbed more than just moisture. That's your first clue. The second is more subtle. The energy in the room starts to feel heavy again. Maybe you feel more irritable, more mentally foggy, or just notice the space doesn't feel quite right anymore. That's your cue. It's time to refresh the salt. As a general rule, in high traffic or high moisture areas like entryways, bathrooms, or kitchens, replace the salt every 3 months. In quieter, more stable spaces, like dry corners of the living room or inside cabinets, you can go up to 6 months. But don't rely solely on the calendar. Trust your senses. If the room starts to feel off, change the salt sooner. Now, here's where a lot of people get it wrong. How to dispose of the salt. Never reuse old Feng Shui salt for cooking. It's absorbed energy, some of it heavy or chaotic, and putting that back into your body is like drinking used bathwater. It's not physically dirty, but energetically, it's done its job. The same goes for using it around pets, or in cleaning products. Once it's saturated, it's time to let it go properly. Avoid throwing it straight in the trash. That's like opening a full dust bag and letting everything spill back out. Instead, be intentional. The best method: dissolve the salt in water. Hot or cold is fine. And flush it down the toilet. Or pour it into the sink with running water. If you live near the ocean or a river, returning it to nature is even better. Water helps complete the purification cycle and safely carries that energy away. There's something grounding about closing the loop on a ritual. Replacing salt isn't just maintenance. It's a chance to reset your space and tune in to how it feels. Energy care, like any kind of care, works best when it's consistent. Just like changing your car's oil or replacing an air filter. This small act keeps the whole system running smoothly. So next time you place salt in your home, set a reminder. Check it every few months. Pay attention to how it shifts and how you feel in the space around it. That little bowl of salt is doing more than you think. Just make sure it's not doing it past its prime. Is putting salt around the house just superstition? Some people roll their eyes when they hear about placing jars of salt around the house. Sounds like superstition, they say. And sure, if you think salt is being used to magically ward off evil spirits, it's easy to dismiss. But take a closer look, and you'll see there's more going on here than old folklore. In fact, both science and psychology help explain why this practice often works, and why it feels effective. Let's start with the science. Salt is hygroscopic, meaning it naturally pulls moisture from the air. That's why it's used to reduce dampness in small, enclosed spaces. Along with moisture, salt can bind to certain impurities and dust particles, which helps create a cleaner, fresher environment. Some research even links negative ions, often released by natural salt in humid conditions, with improved mood, clearer thinking, and better sleep. That's the idea behind Himalayan salt lamps. They're not mystical gadgets. They're based on how salt physically interacts with the air around it. Then there's the energetic side. In many traditions, natural objects are believed to carry their own energy fields. Salt, formed over time and rich in minerals, is thought to have a strong capacity to absorb and stabilize energy. It's not that salt is magical. It's that it's responsive. It interacts with the environment it's placed in. When used intentionally, in the right places, it can help balance the energy of a space. But if used carelessly, it might do the opposite, dulling or disrupting the natural flow instead of helping it. And finally, there's the psychological perspective. Rituals like placing salt aren't just about the objects. They're about what those actions represent. When someone places salt with intention, to clear, to protect, to reset, they're also creating a mental shift. That's powerful. In psychology, it's called symbolic action. Doing something physical that creates internal clarity. When people feel more grounded and aligned, they make better choices, sleep better, and often feel calmer at home. That's not magic. That's mindset. So is placing salt around your home a superstition? Maybe. But it's also a science-supported, energetically aware, and psychologically smart practice. Whether you believe in energy fields, or simply appreciate the feeling of clarity and calm it brings, the result is the same. A more balanced, peaceful space to live in. Salt isn't just a seasoning. It's a quiet but powerful tool for shifting the energy in your space. When used with intention, it becomes more than a tradition or trend. It becomes a way to protect your energy, dissolve what no longer serves you, and support the kind of flow that welcomes clarity, calm, and good fortune. Across cultures and centuries, salt keeps showing up as a purifier, a stabilizer, a conductor of balance. But here's what matters most. It's not about how much you use. It's about how mindfully you use it. The right placement, the right timing, and the right materials are what turn a simple jar of salt into something meaningful. So if you've read this far, maybe you're ready to give it a try. Maybe your home becomes more than just the place you sleep. It becomes where you recover, realign, and build momentum for what matters most. And it can start with something as small as a quiet bowl of salt, placed with care. If this shifted your perspective, or made you think differently about your space? Feel free to like or subscribe. We've got more to share. Because sometimes, the smallest changes bring the biggest shifts.